Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're unpacking one of the more complicated K-pop legal stories out there, the recent developments in the Hee Jin case. This has been an ongoing battle for over a year, and while the headlines say Hee Jin cleared by police, what that actually means and what it doesn't needs some careful untangling. So let's go step by step. Before we get started though, don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. On July 15th, South Korea's police announced that Hee Jin, former CEO of Adore, would be dropped of her charges in relation to the breach of trust case brought against her by HYBE. To give some context, breach of trust is a criminal offense in South Korean law that involves intentionally harming the company you're responsible for managing, usually for personal gain or to help someone else. After a long investigation, the Yongsan police station said there wasn't enough evidence to send the case to the prosecutor's office for trial. Now, not forwarded for prosecution doesn't equal not guilty. Police don't decide guilt or innocence. They simply determine if there's enough evidence to take a case to court. If the evidence doesn't meet the standard for a criminal trial, they close the case at their level. No trial means there's no verdict. So, legally speaking, Min hasn't been found innocent or guilty, just not prosecuted. The case dates back to April 2024, when HYBE, which owns 80% of Adore, accused Min of attempting to take over Adore by colluding with outside investors and bypassing internal decision-making systems. Min's legal team welcomed the police decision, stating, "After more than a year of investigation, police have found no grounds for criminal suspicion. Both the breach of trust and embezzlement claims have been dismissed." For them, this essentially means the criminal threat has been lifted for now. HYBE, however, isn't ready to drop the matter. They've already announced plans to formally appeal the police's decision, hoping to have the investigation reopened. Here's where things get more complicated. Around the same time, the Seoul High Court issued a ruling in a separate civil case. The court concluded that Min had intentionally destroyed the integrated structure that was the premise of the exclusive contract, referring to the investor agreement that bound Adore under HYBE's larger corporate framework. Basically, this contract required Adore to share strategies, resources, and management systems with HYBE, operating as part of one big team. The court found that Min deliberately dismantled this setup, giving the impression that Adore was functioning as an independent entity, which went against the fundamental terms of her contract. Now, this wasn't just speculation or opinion. It was a formal conclusion reached by a civil court after hearing evidence and arguments from both Min's team and HYBE. But why then did the police not find enough to criminally prosecute her? The answer lies in the difference between civil and criminal cases. In a civil case, the court uses the balance of probabilities standard, meaning they only have to be convinced that it's more likely than not that the breach occurred. In criminal law, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, which requires near certainty, often explained as around 99% confidence in guilt. So, the civil court found Min liable and ordered her to pay damages, but the police didn't think there was enough to meet the much higher criminal standard. It's not unusual for the same set of facts to lead to different outcomes in civil and criminal court because of these different thresholds. HYBE, unhappy with this, is pushing to challenge the police's decision and is expected to file a formal objection, hoping that prosecutors will eventually reopen the case. All of this has sparked the big question fans have been asking. Does Hee Jin avoiding criminal charges change anything for Newjeans in their separate legal fight with Adore? Many people remember that one of Newjeans' core arguments in their case was that Min was unfairly removed as CEO, and this removal directly harmed the group's ability to operate. On the surface, it might seem that Min not facing criminal charges strengthens their position, but when we dig deeper into the legal reasoning, the connection isn't as straightforward as it might appear. Back in their appeal for an injunction, a kind of emergency court order that would prevent them from being able to act independently of Adore, the court addressed this exact issue. Newjeans' lawyers argued that Min's removal justified ending their exclusive contract, but the judge disagreed, stating, "Min's removal from the CEO position does not constitute grounds for the termination of Newjeans' exclusive contract." Essentially, there's nothing in their contract that ties the group's obligations to Hee Jin's role as CEO. Even if they were unhappy with her being ousted, the terms of their agreement don't give them a legal escape route based on who manages Adore. This matters because contract law, at its core, is about what's written and agreed upon. Since there's no clause saying the contract ends if Min leaves, the court ruled that her removal, regardless of the circumstances, doesn't impact Newjeans' binding obligations to Adore. The legal focus in Newjeans' case is on other claims they've made, such as how the contract operates, their creative independence, and whether Adore has breached any of its duties toward the group. Another factor to consider is how the courts view Min's civil liability. While the Seoul High Court found that she intentionally disrupted Adore's integration with HYBE, this finding doesn't directly influence Newjeans' case. Civil rulings like this can sometimes be referenced in other cases, but they're not automatically binding, especially when the cases involve different parties and legal questions. For Newjeans to win, they still need to prove their own claims independently of Min's situation. So, does Min's situation help Newjeans? The short answer is no, at least not in any significant way. Even if the police had pressed charges and she'd been found not guilty, it wouldn't automatically strengthen Newjeans' case. Their legal battle stands or falls on the arguments and evidence they themselves bring forward. The courts have already made it clear that her removal as CEO isn't legally tied to the group's contract, which limits how much her separate battles can influence theirs. What this all means is that Hee Jin currently isn't facing criminal charges, but she's still responsible for paying damages in the civil case. Hybe is appealing the police's decision, and Newjeans' legal dispute with Adore remains largely unaffected by these developments. It's one of those situations where multiple legal threads are unfolding at once, and while they're connected in the public eye, the law treats them as separate battles. For now, the key takeaway is that the outcome of Min's case doesn't automatically change Newjeans' chances. They'll need to win or lose based on their own arguments. That's all for today. Let me know your thoughts on the situation, and if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll try to research further for an answer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.